Good morning. My name is Miriam Andrews-Ullman. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees and the UU Singers. Welcome to our service. Unitarian Universalism encourages an open-ended search for meaning in life and a commitment to asking our values to shape our actions. We are a pluralistic religion that draws wisdom from many sources. We welcome all people into our beloved community of whatever age, race, class, ethnicity, physical ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious background. We especially welcome those who are worshiping with us for the first time. Guests are welcome to participate in any activities in our community. Welcome team members are wearing green name badges and are ready to answer any questions you may have if you're a visitor or new to the congregation. Pastoral care team members are wearing yellow name badges and are able to talk with you if you have life transitions or need assistance. We invite everyone to join us downstairs after service for coffee and snacks so we can get to know each other better. Thank you for being with us today. I'd also like to take an opportunity to read our Covenant of Right Relations, which we voted on at the annual meeting last May and are still working to learn and integrate into the daily life of the church. We commit to this covenant in order to put our values and principles into action in all our relationships. Loving kindness is the root that connects us, guiding our actions in building a beloved community. We come together in love and justice, where people of all identities are equal, included, and welcomed. Generosity underlies all aspects of our contributions of time, energy, finances, talents, and emotional support. Remembering each person's inherent worth and dignity in all matters at all times, we strive to interact with empathy, understanding, and openness using direct, respectful communication. When disagreements arise, we agree to pause to allow for calming and conscious discernment. We will use a process of reconciliation to address unresolved conflicts. We recognize that our diversity and individuality are an opportunity to learn about and deepen our understanding of each other. And the last thing I have to share with you this morning is to invite you to please be generous with your time and ideas as you fill out our transition survey. If you're a member or friend, you should have received a link in your email. And I've gotten a lot of feedback. We apologize. Some of the questions are a little clunky online. So we have a couple suggestions. You can either just grab a paper survey out in the foyer and leave it in the wooden box, or the clunky ones are ranking questions. So if you write down your rankings on a paper and then enter them, that should help it go more smoothly. We apologize for that. We really do value your feedback as we transition through the next couple of months into the years beyond. So thank you for filling that out.
Before the choir serenades us, there are a couple other, I think, moments. I do want to say it's terribly important that you do fill out the survey. It's not just a nice thing. You all really need this to be able to answer two questions that are part of your transition process. Who are you, and where do you want to go, or who do you want to be? Without this information, your leadership cannot help guide you into the paths that you want to be in and to articulate who you are with possible ministerial candidates and others that might be looking at you. So this information is very, very important. Please take the time to fill one of these out, and if you need help, please talk to Miriam, particularly since she was one of the people who helped put it together along with some others. This is very important. So it's not just a nice thing, it's a necessity for you in your transitions going forward. So we have a couple of other minor things.
Hi, I'm Lori McCullum. Just a couple quick spotlights. There are 2 interfaith activities coming up I want to make you aware of. Quad Cities Becoming a Beloved Community. There are 2 Tuesdays, this coming Tuesday and the following Tuesday. And I believe it's being led by Reverend James Fielder of Moline. So if you need any information on that, I'd be happy to provide that. And there's also one called the American Refuge, the Refugee Experience, and the Power of Radical Hospitality. at the Rogalski Center at St. Ambrose on Thursday, February 22nd. I can give you that information as well. Thank you.
Yes, block a hymn for next year, or pay to have one not be blocked. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a breaking in my soul, in my soul. It is a wonder and a mystery that our paths have crossed, that in the immensity of time and the vastness of space, we coincide here. I am in awe of the ways in which our lives intersect and intertwine, at the beauty we create when we gather. May our coming together make us more compassionate, more just, more caring, more loving. May our hearts and minds be open to this offering. I am so glad that you are here. Let us worship. Let us marvel at the miracle of being here right now. Let us worship. Let us marvel at the miracle and the mystery that has brought us all together. Let us say together our unison words for the chalice lighting in your order of service and soon on the screen. Together we say, when the great mosaic of humanity is treated with respect and dignity, when no person is threatened by hunger or war, when we have extended hospitality to the stranger and tended to the sick, when equity and justice reign everywhere, then we shall all be free. We light this flame to hold this moment in our spirit and in our minds until we can make it real. As you can, please join us in our opening hymn, number 112 in the gray hymnal, and rise as you're willing and able. As you remain standing, please join us in our responsive reading, number 579 in your hymnal and on the screen. Responsively, we begin. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet deprecate agitation are people who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without pleasure and lightning. They want the ocean without the awful roar of its waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Find out what people will submit to, and you have found out the exact amount of injustice which will be imposed upon them. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. Let us now join in greeting the holy in our midst by briefly turning and greeting our neighbors, especially those we do not know. And now it is time for a message for all ages from our Director of Religious Education, Ken Johnson. Children of all ages are
Don't be
invited to
scared.
come down and join us.
Don't be scared. If you're young at heart and have the hips for it, you can come up and sit down too. Well, I say that because in childcare, being up and off and down on the floor, like my hips were the first thing to go. So like I sit down and then all of a sudden I'm like, why do I have to sit on a pillow to make sure that my hips don't hurt? So that means I'm old, but that's okay because it's just a part of life. So it's good seeing so many of you guys again. We saw some of you last night at the dance and you had fun. And it's good seeing some new faces to come back. Okay, we'll go on. So the story today, I am going to have problem with the names because my dyslexia is really kicking in. The name is Mullah Nasruddin. And he feeds his coat. Now, this is adopted from a Middle Eastern Islamic folktale. So, let's see what happens here, shall we? I know, we're all like, oh, we danced ourselves out last night. We can't do this. When did you get to bed? I digress. I'm sorry. I didn't take my meds today. So, Mullah had been working in the fields all day long, and he was tired, and he was sweaty, and his clothes and his shoes were just covered in mud and stains, and because he had been fasting, that's a big word. Do you guys, not eating food, is that what you were going to say? Yeah, you're right. And because he was fasting all day long for Ramadan, he was quite hungry, but finally, it was almost sundown, and he knew that he would soon be able to eat. Now, the wealthiest man in town had invited everyone to come break their fast in their home that evening with a huge feast. And Mullah, he knew that he would be late if he went home to change his clothes before heading into town. So he decided, you know what? It would be better if I just arrive in dirty clothes and be late. And oh, what a party that would be. What a feast. As he walked into the wealthy man's home, Nasruddin imagined all the delicious foods that he would soon be eating. All the dates and lentils and chickpeas. I know, I see all your faces going. Remember, it's a Middle Eastern folktale, so their food might be just a little bit different from ours. But I assure you, when we get to the hummus and the falafel, when you guys try it, it's going to be great. A date? Not like your parents' date, no. No. Dates are little edible things. Say it again?
Dried plums.
Dried plums. So.
I'm sorry, no, I'm wrong.
No, you're wrong.
It's a prune.
It's a prune. It's a dried prune. Okay. We're all learning something today. So there's a ton of fun food with olives and bread and the hummus and falafel and the chicken and beef and best of all the desserts, the havla, the date rolls, the figs and the baklava. Yet again, more food that I'm sure you guys are going, but I assure you they are delicacies. So when Nasruddin arrived at the wealthy man had opened the door and he looked him up and down scornfully with his worn rags and his ragged clothing and this mud on his shoes, and without a word of welcome, he gestured for Nasruddin to come in, and then he walked away. That doesn't seem very ingratiating or inviting of a guest, is it? No. That's kind of like, I don't know why you're here, but yeah, okay, whatever. So Nasruddin joined the throngs of people who were all dressed in their finest clothing, and the tables were laden with all sorts of delicious foods, all of the ones that you guys kind of shook your noses at earlier, the falafel, the hummus, the dates, and best of all, there were the desserts. And despite his efforts to hurry, the seats were all taken, and nobody tried to move over or make space for him. In fact, nobody offered him any food, and he tried to reach over or around people to get food to put it on his plate, and nobody spoke to him. And it just seemed like Nasruddin was not even there. Well, that doesn't seem very nice, does it? How would you feel if you get invited to a party and then all of a sudden nobody's talking to you? Nobody's even offering any food. Mad. Yeah, it's a little upsetting. It's sad. You're right. So the other guest ignored him so completely that Nasruddin could not enjoy the food on his plate, and no matter how finely it had been prepared or how tasty it was. In fact, after only a few bites, he decided that he was so uncomfortable, he just decided to leave. So he hurried home, and he changed into his finest clothes, and including a beautiful coat. And within an hour or so, he returned to the feast, and this time, why, the host welcomed him with a huge smile. Well, come in, he greeted. And as Nasruddin entered, the people all waved and called to him from all corners of the room, and they invited him to come over and sit down with them, and they were offering him food. Why? What changed? He was wearing nice clothes, but how do you think this made him feel, Nasruddin? Yeah, maybe a little bit better, but why didn't they do it the first time? Why didn't they offer him stuff the first time, Zoe? Because he was sweaty. And like you last night, you don't like being hugged by sweaty people. And they didn't, yeah. Ooh, I like that. They were judging a book by its cover. Yes, that was a good one. So, Nasruddin sat down quietly, and picking up a plump fig, he carefully put it into the pocket of his coat, saying, "It's okay, coat. Eat, coat. You can eat." And after a while, he picked up some lentils and put them in his coat pocket, saying the exact same thing. "Eat, coat, eat." And then the chickpeas and the olives and the bread and the hummus and the falafel, and then he did it with the desserts too. He picked them all up and he put them in his pockets, saying, "Eat, coat, eat." Now, Nasruddin became very silent because everybody there was watching his strange behavior. And very soon, people in the room were wondering, what is he doing? Like you're saying, what is he doing? So they asked him, "Nasruddin, what are you doing? Why are you feeding your coat in this manner?" And he replied, "Well, when I first came to this feast in my old farm clothes, I wasn't welcomed. Nobody paid attention to me. Nobody spoke to me. But when I went home and I changed into this coat, I was greeted warmly. So I realized it's not really me that is welcome at this party, but it's my clothing. And so the party must be for my clothes." A little funny, right? But how do you think he felt about that, knowing that he got invited to a party, but they only talked to him whenever he looked nice, presentable? How does that make you feel? How do you think that made him feel? Yeah, like he was being judged. Yeah. You forgot. That's okay. That's okay. So that's not a nice thing, right? To judge people, to judge a book by its cover. That's not something that we really try to do, is it? Do you think it's fair? No. No, it's not fair at all. He wanted to come to a party. He was invited, and they said, "No, that's not very nice." So what we need to do is remember that people come from all sorts of different places. People come from different backgrounds. People might be running around all sweaty at a dance, and they just want a hug. Yeah, that's right. You keep running. But we need to look deeper. We need to recognize people for who they are, people, and treat them the same as we would anybody else. So let's get ready to go downstairs, and we got an activity planned, okay?
Go now in peace, may the spirit of love surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go. We come together every week here as a community, and a part of that is in sharing the joys, concerns, the milestones that are part of our lives. Among us here this week, the following has been shared here. Has anything been shared online?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Teresa Guys, sorrow for friends with persistent mental and physical illnesses. And she also says joy to have friends for hope and fun company.
Thank you. Also among us, Lori McCollum has shared that thanks for the folks who planned the Valentine's Day dance yesterday. And Darcy Anderson offers the following joys. We have a new locked mailbox now. This has been a major project as part of our security issues in the congregation. And as part of our kitchen renovations, we have our new electric stoves will be hooked up this week. So yay! To Darcy and all the folks on our property committee who have worked so incredibly hard to make all these things a reality. We have all of these joys, concerns, and milestones that are a part of our lives and others that we have not shared that are still present with us and among us. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? All will be well, and all will be well, all manner of things will be well. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of generosity, as we draw near to this quiet, essential side of ourselves, may we open enough to consider the sacred choices we make each moment, each minute, each hour, each day, that add up to a lifetime. Let us become aware that here in this place is a place to be forgiven, and to forgive ourselves for any past thoughts and actions. Here is a place to begin again with love. As we are forgiven, let us open our hearts to forgive others, to pray for them, for their well-being and joy, that they may be lifted from worry and burden into peace and abundance. May we all be blessed with riches of the Spirit and moment upon moment of peace and serenity. Amen, and blessed be. Please, during the musical meditation, feel free to come forward to light candles and join us now in a moment in silence and meditation or reflection as you will. Please join us in our hymn of meditation, number 123, in your hymnal or on the screen, Spirit of Life. And we'll sing this song through twice, since it's a one-verse song. And please rise as you're willing and able.
In the sea.
Thank you. Please be seated. We actually have two readings this morning. The first one is from an article from the Guardian newspaper from this week, from the 8th, by Aaron Reed. Republicans are redefining the word equal in an Iowa anti-trans bill. On Tuesday afternoon, the Iowa House of Education Committee met to debate and study House Bill 649, a bill proposed by Republican Governor Kim Reynolds. The bill was drafted and would end legal recognition for transgender people anywhere male or female appear in the Iowa Code, and would require special gender markers for transgender people on their birth certificates, measures that were compared to, quote, pink triangles once used to identify LGBTQ people by the Nazis in the 40s. Perhaps the most ambitious attempt to discriminate against transgender people in the proposed legislation, however, is through redefining the word equal in the bill. The bill states that when it comes to transgender people, the term equal does not mean same or identical, which raises the question, what does equal mean? The bill does not define the word, only declares that, quote, equal no longer means same or identical within the state of Iowa for transgender people. When the sponsor was asked directly what the word equal means in this bill, the representative, Heather Hora, answered equal would mean, I would assume that equal would mean, I don't know exactly in this context. If the bill's own sponsor cannot define the word equal due to eliminating the word's actual definition, how can she claim to have created the perfect definition for man or woman in Iowa law? In attempting to write transgender people out of all legal protections in Iowa through definitions, the state legislature seems poised to undermine the very concept of equality itself. That should be enough to shake all Iowans, regardless of their political stance on transgender issues. The bill's sponsor is not content with redefining the word equal, however. The bill goes on to proclaim that, quote, separate is not inherently unequal. One opponent of the bill pointed to the cruel history of the doctrine of separate but equal and an attempt to revive that history with their new Republican-doned target. Though the new definition of the word equal and the revival of the separate but equal doctrine only applies to transgender people, the precedents that make up that bedrock of equality for all are threatened. Is it so important for Republicans to get a political victory against transgender people in the state that they're willing to go this far? And the article continues with other things of importance. This bill is being considered now in your legislature, by the way. Despite heavy opposition, within less than 24 hours, notice the bill had a hearing, was announced, was heard, and passed, leaving little time for the committee or the state to properly vet its staggering implications. In the coming day, Iowa legislatures will grapple with the meaning of the words as this bill moves to the full House floor. So, just a little heads up about the issue of equality. Our next reading is by my colleague, the Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison Reed. He says, the central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice. It is the church that assures us that we are not struggling for justice on our own, but as members of a larger community. The religious community is essential, for alone our vision is too narrow to see all that must be seen, and our strength is too limited to do all that must be done. Together, our vision widens, and our strength is renewed. So ends our reading. This congregation is a theologically diverse religious community with membership open to all who are in accordance with our principles, our mission, and vision. We are a welcoming congregation to people of all sexual orientations and are unconditionally welcome any and all of you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. Our congregation is entirely self-governed by democratic process, and one of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of our financial support for our many ministries from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of our core spiritual values, which we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. You are now invited to participate in the blessing of giving as ushers come among you to accept the gifts of this congregation. We are sharing our undesignated plate offering this month with the PACG. Could someone tell me what that means? There you go. Progressive action for the common good. And for those of you online, we invite you to join us in giving online in our website and in other ways as well. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Justice and equity are two of the most commonly cited values or principles that Unitarian Universalists have, and not just among us, but among many religious people. As we use our monthly themes in worship and religious education to reflect on the values presented in our renewed Article 2 process. Now, Article 2 is our place in our UUA bylaws where we consider our core values. And currently we're going through a process of renewal and reflection on that. And therefore we're using that opportunity to look at those things in our monthly themes. And two of those are equity and justice. I find it interesting that these two are linked together as often as they are. And I've always wondered why that is at times. It's also interesting that equity and equality, which many of us tend to think about being like they're the same thing or similar, really aren't. And this is one of the hardest things for people to grasp sometimes. And one of the places where we tend to be abused by others who keep saying that justice has been provided because equality has been done, when it's really equity that we tend to need for justice to be done. I'll start out talking about some of the differences here between various parts of equality and equity and what makes them different and what leads us towards justice, and then some of the different types of justice even, because there are various types of those. Now, before you start getting bored, because I'm giving you a grammar lesson or a vocabulary lesson, unfortunately, if we don't know what words mean, we can't really use them effectively. And as we just listened to that article I just read you about something that's currently going on in the Iowa legislature, the meaning of words affect people's lives. And if we do not understand the meanings of these words, we cannot use them effectively or appropriately. Merriam-Webster dictionary, a favorite of ministers to quote, says that equity refers to fairness or justice in the way people are treated, and especially freedom from bias or favoritism, as in governed according to the principle of equity. Equality refers to the quality or state of having the same rights or opportunities, as in women's struggle for equality. Now, that all sounds kind of straightforward, but it also sounds like pretty much the same. And I think that's one of the issues. I looked at a lot of the different standard definitions, and they can all sound a little mushy after a while. Nikki Erdman, in an article in 2021, wrote that even though equality and equity sound similar, the differences between them matter. Societal structures place people of certain status, such as race or socioeconomic status, at different points of advantage or disadvantage with structural barriers. What is equality, or what is equity? Equity is not only dividing resources fairly and equally, but also factoring in differences among people. Differences such as race, and socioeconomic status that would require different support to ensure the same opportunity of success. And now this can be shown in various types of images, and one of them that she offers in an article is one of an apple tree that's bent to one side. So think of that as an apple tree that's sort of bent over to one side, and that there is a boy on one side of the ladder because the tree is higher on that side, and where there's a boy on a shorter ladder on the other side that the tree leans toward, and that they are trying to gather apples. They have different sized ladders to make sure they can pick the apples. What is equality? Equality is dividing resources equally, but does not factor differences in need and ability. Everybody is given the exact same quantity of resources, as seen in the image where both boys are given the same size ladder, perhaps, not factoring in differences of access, leading one boy who was on the side where the tree is leaning away from, who cannot get to the apples, whereas the one on the side the tree is leaning to can. What is justice? Justice is long-term equity. It looks to create equity in systems as well as individuals. Quote, justice can take equity one step further by fixing the system in a way that leads to long-term, sustainable, equitable access for generations to come, unquote. Now, if you again visualize this image where both boys are given the same size ladder, but instead are given different size ladders. And they give added supports to ensure that they have access to the apples, perhaps maybe pushing the tree back into a more straightened position so they both have more equal access. The route to achieving equality, to equity, will not be accomplished through treating everyone equally. This is important. The route to equity may not be achieved by treating everyone equally. It will be achieved by treating everyone equitably or justly according to their circumstance. Now, justice, as has been hinted at, is hopefully one of the end points that we try to reach. And equity, I think, is more commonly associated with an accomplishment, with an end point, with something that has been done. And so I think it is more commonly associated with justice because justice generally is something that is then accomplished. It is a state. And there are four basic types of justice that evangelical thinker Ron Sider has identified in his book, The Health of the Nation, an Evangelical Call to Civic Responsibility. In a chapter on justice, he says, commutative justice requires fairness in agreements and exchanges between private parties. Weights and measures should be the same for everyone. Contracts should be kept. The second type is retributive justice and defines what is due to a person when they have been wronged. It defines what is appropriate punishment for someone who has broken the law. We currently have a former president who's dealing with some of that right now. Procedural justice defines the procedures and processes that must be fair if justice is to prevail. This is one of the basic hallmarks of a liberal democracy, little l, of procedural justice. Procedural justice requires a transparent legal framework, unbiased courts, the rule of law, freedom of speech, assembly and vote, honest elections, and so forth. So this procedural justice is central to many of the things that we are facing and dealing with right now. Distributive justice is the fourth thing that Sider mentions. He says, distributive justice refers to the numerous goods of society and how they are divided. What is a just division of money, health care, educational opportunities? In short, all the goods and services in a society. Who owes what of all these things to persons and institutions? What role, if any, does government have in guaranteeing that there is a fair distribution of these goods? Is it enough for government to ensure fair procedures, unbiased courts, or should government seek to promote fair outcomes, equity? Sider says, obviously these issues of distributive justice is the most controversial. And he implies that every society has a means of distributive justice already in place. Whether goods are divided based on needs, earning potential, or birthright, somehow goods are divided. The task for the believer is to determine how our contribution to our society's ethos of distribution can be honoring to God. Justice is a very complicated and sticky issue, and hopefully for these four definitions that Sider offers will provide us some way of clearing up some of the fog. The poet Denise Levertov offers in her reading Beginners, we have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower, not as oppressors. We have only begun to know the power that is in us if we would join our solitudes in the communion of struggle. When we are thinking about issues of equality, of equity, of justice, we have to take all of these different meanings in context, in situations. We have to be present to the moment. There is no one answer that fixes everything, which means we have to be engaged. It calls us to active engagement in the process of making equity, of making justice, of bringing hope to those who have none, and to ensuring a better future for everyone. In traditional cultures, particularly in Native American cultures, there is a phrase known as walking the beautiful path or beautiful way. And what this usually refers to is walking in balance, being in balance, in harmony with everything that is. And I think if we can keep that in mind as we reflect on these issues of equity and justice, it will give us an interesting barometer by which we can look at these things and try and come to a better understanding of how we create justice, essentially in repairing a wounded world to help us heal the hoop of our society. In the Jewish tradition, they talk about healing the world, tikkun olam. And it begins with imagining that healing, visualizing that restoration of a shattered creation, the coming together of edges that are rent and ragged and lives separated from the power of love. And I think it is one of the things that a religious community can bring to this conversation of equity and justice, this power of love. this hope, this desire for tikkun olam, for healing the hoop of the world, for making a shattered creation more whole, for bringing a vision of wholeness to all of us, even those who may not agree with us, that we may wish and pray for and desire wholeness for everyone. And that, to me, is what equity and justice ultimately means. Join as you will now in singing our closing hymn. Number 131, Love Will Guide Us. And rise as you're willing and able in singing together in common song. Love will guide us, peace inside us, hope inside us, will He go away from the road from me to give me, love will guide us through the hard night, through the hard night. You cannot sing like angels if you cannot speak for thousands. You leave the world deep within you. You can change the world with your love, with your love. Love will guide us, peace and sunrise, hope inside us, leading away, away on the road we take living. Love will guide us through the hard night. Please join us as we extinguish our chalice by saying together, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Within each of our hearts, there is a most glorious light. Go forth and let its spark help you understand what troubles both you and others. Go forth and let its light of reason be a guide in your decisions. Go forth and bring its rays of hope to those in need of help, both body and spirit, that they may find healing. Go forth and fan the flames of passion to help heal our world. Go forth and spread the warm glow of love, pushing back the darkness of the world. Go forth and share your glorious light with the world. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile upon you and favor you. May the Eternal befriend you and prosper you and all people, always. Amen. And blessed be. Please be seated for the post.